Welcome to my Days of Our Lives official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Ava lays a trap for Clyde in Montana at the sanitarium. Kayla noticed Sarah's ring, and Sarah verified she was engaged to Xander. I just wanted a ring tattoo, but I suppose my mama will murder me if I get another tattoo, Sarah said. I am not an addict, moreover. And I hear they are kind of hard to get off, Kayla said. Sarah shifted uncomfortably, and she asked Kayla why she'd need to remove her tattoo. Is not it egregious? Your master thinks I am going to squinch effects up between us again, Xander said as he walked up. Kayla told Xander that she hadn't meant to insinuate anything. Xander scowled. Sarah said it was fine. I am sorry. It was a clumsy comment. I really wish the stylish for both of you. I hope it works out this time, Kayla added. Xander promised that he'd eventually learned his assignment. All that matters to me now is being a good hubby and father and having the love and respect of this woman right then, Xander said. After Kayla left, Xander verified that Maggie had been happy to take a break from marriage, planning to babysit Victoria. You will be happy to know I avoided the subject of the swine that she's engaged to and how I suppose marrying him is a terrible idea, Xander murmured. Sarah laughed. I am veritably proud of you for your restraint. I mean, we know it's not a real marriage, Sarah said. With a shake of his head, Xander said he abominated the idea of Maggie joining with Constantine for any reason. I am just so thankful and lucky to be marrying for love. Marrying the woman of my dreams, no lower, Xander said. Sarah broached the subject of the guest list. I want to invite your mama, Sarah said. Xander's smile faded, and he reminded Sarah that he'd no contact with his mama. I just allowed. That perhaps this might be a good occasion for you to reconnect, Sarah said. Sarah argued that there had to have been good times for Xander and his mama. There could have been some good times whenever she laid the bottle down. But she no way did, Sarah. Because she's a drunk. And a mean bone. At that, Xander said. Sarah told Xander that she understood what it was like to be the child of an alcoholic, but Xander argued that his situation was different. My mum's an unashamed rummy. And trust me, indeed when she's sober, she's no Maggie Horton, Xander combated. Sarah noted that it was possible that Xander's mama had changed since he'd last spoken to her, but Xander dissented. The woman is unable of change. She has no desire to come sober. She no way had a soul-searching moment in her whole life. She's relatively pleased with herself, actually, Xander said. Sarah signed. I guess it's unwise to give anyone with a checkered history an alternate chance, which does call into question some of my very recent opinions, Sarah said as she tapped her ring cutlet against her impertinence. Xander soughed, and he noted that indeed if he did consider inviting his mama to the marriage, he didn't know where to find her. I am veritably happy to track her down, but really only if you are okay with it, Sarah said. Sarah added that she believed it would be good for Victoria to get to know her paternal grandmother. You know I will do anything for our son. Each right. I will agree, but only for Victoria's sake, Xander said. Sarah squealed with joy. Xander advised Sarah to lower her prospects. I am not induced this is the stylish idea, but I do appreciate the gesture. I know your heart is in the right place, Xander said. Sarah thanked Xander. With a grin, Xander noted that if effects went horribly, he reserved the right to say, I told you so. At the Johnson hearthstone, Steve was packing for a trip when Chad knocked on the door. I need to know what is going on, Chad demanded. Steve tried to avoid an answer, but Chad yelled that he'd not leave until Steve told him everything. Steve streamlined Chad with all he knew from Harris. It should not be long before we get him in Montana, Steve said. Upset, Chad argued that they couldn't take any chances with Clyde, and he claimed that he'd go to Montana with Steve. After Chad ordered the demerits spurt, Steve tried to inhibit Chad from going with him. You have two youthful children to suppose about, Steve contended. What do you suppose I am doing this for? Chad yelled. Chad argued that he demanded to exclude the topmost trouble to his family. You aren't trained for this, Steve said. Chad reminded Steve of how useful he'd been on the boat when they had saved Kate. Steve was reticent to agree, so Chad reminded him that Chad was the one with the gladdened-up spurt. I am gonna be on that airplane. With or without you, Chad said. With a shriek, Steve agreed. As Steve and Chad started to leave, they ran into Kayla. Where are you two off to? Kayla asked. Harris and Ava are hunting Weston in Montana. Chad and I are going to join them, Steve said. Kayla was irked that Steve had planned to leave without telling her. I was going to text you, Steve said. When Kayla glared at Steve, Chad offered to meet Steve at the airport so that Steve and Kayla could talk in private. After Chad left, Kayla lit into Steve. I am responsible for breaking Weston out of captivity. He nearly killed Tripp. I need to make him pay for that, Steve said. You need to let Harris and Ava handle it, Kayla argued. With a shake of his head, Steve said he couldn't watch from the sidelines. Kayla reminded Steve that his family wasn't in peril and that he didn't need to risk his life this time. As long as Weston is still out there, we are each in peril, Steve combated. Let's just say that that is true. Why does it always have to be you? Kayla asked. Steve said he felt compelled to take action, because that was who he was as a person. You used to love that about me, Steve said. Kayla told Steve that she loved his frippery and that he made the family feel safe, but he'd made some terrible opinions in the history, too. I didn't love when you made the unilateral decision to abandon your family in Africa. I didn't feel safe when we lost all those times together, Kayla said. I was guarding you also and our kiddies, Steve combated. At what cost? I cannot do it again, Kayla said. Kayla turned her back on Steve, and she said she couldn't lose him. When Steve promised that she'd not lose him, she argued that he couldn't keep that pledge. You are right. I should have consulted you first. But I've to do this, Steve said. Why? Kayla asked. Steve explained that he believed that Ava intended to kill Clyde, and he demanded to be there. To stop her? Or to help her commit murder? Kayla asked. Steve admitted that he'd been toying with the idea of letting Ava murder Clyde because Clyde merited it. That isn't how justice works, Kayla said. I am ashamed of it, but occasionally, I do not want justice, Steve confessed. Steve prayed Kayla to let him go. However, no, if your intention is that you're going to go and kill Weston, you need to keep out of it. You need to stay right then. And you need to do that for me, Kayla demanded. After a moment, Steve agreed to stay. Steve's phone telephoned with a communication. Chad could not stay. He left without me, Steve said. Steve hugged Kayla. In the cantina, Roman and Kate complained about Leo's conspiracy in the baby switch. He could have saved my son a whole lot of heartbreak, Roman lumbered. He could have saved you a whole lot of heartbreak, as well, Kate agreed. As Kate held Roman's hand, he told her that he knew she related to the feeling of not being suitable to help one's child when they were suffering. With a shriek, Kate talked about Lucas' loneliness at the friary. I am trying to limit my contact with him, so I will not accidentally put him in peril, Kate said. Roman encouraged Kate to call Lucas so that it would ease her mind. After a call to the friary, Kate learned that Lucas had left with Harris. My God, what's he going to do with my son now? Kate said. All Ava told me was that she and Harris were leaving city for a couple days, Roman verified. Roman and Kate agreed that the group was going after Clyde. I wish that they would just leave Lucas out of it, Kate said. Frustrated, Kate complained that if anything happened to her son, she'd take out Harris and Ava herself. Roman prompted Kate to calm down, but she continued to worry audibly about Lucas. We do not know that Lucas is in any peril. And if Commodity is wrong, he can take care of himself, Roman assured Kate. Kate jounced.